Tired of watching double hardcore juicy
Creeper.
If yes, you're watching just the right video. Other than this one, the only double hardcore you'll encounter is 100 days. And what do I mean by that? Let's hop into a brand new world, and I'll explain. Yo, what's going on? It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Sid, and in this video we'll build a gigantic village that houses 1,000 villagers. But while I complete basic tasks, I'll reveal the catch. You get an extra 100 in one video, because I ran out of time so bad. This means that basically the first 100 is about the preparation, and the second one about the building itself. Surprise! Who wouldn't love an extra 100 days of Minecraft?
Bruh.
If that's you, then skip to the displayed time and enjoy the destination more than the journey, you prick. I'm kidding. I love and respect everyone, especially who stayed with me to gather some food. In return, I reveal that I even found some sugar cane, and my dodging skills I learned in Elden Ring. I would love to avoid editing that picture, just like this arrow over the upcoming part. Let me know in the comments if I succeeded or not. Anyway, I found the coal to cook my meat on and ran into this shady fella who provided the opportunity to showcase my extraordinary reaction time once again. Poopy Face scared me so much that I couldn't stand but rob him for the teleportation device he owned. Nothing else stood in my way on this first day except this ravine, so I made my bed on the top of a tree when the sun started to set. The next morning, I spotted a jungle in the distance, so I was on my way to gather various exotic resources. When I was done with that, I extracted the coal out of the mountainside, and this was about the second day. Here I realized that this was just the first one regarding to the F3 overlay, so I made a day counter shift on my own. The next day was kinda lame, as I had nothing better to do than to collect some more food, pumpkins, sugar cane, and a bit of sand, since this is a sandbox game. As the night fell, I already had enough of this hunting and gathering lifestyle. I was in constant paranoia about a creeper making me waste an hour out of my day, and on the other hand, I was already planning the next steps ahead of me. I took a boat ride to reach potential areas to start a base. And what I mean with potential is a mountain village that has multiple cool biomes within render distance, some nice peaks and neat little valleys. What I've seen from the place while I massacred the animals living here made me want to explore further. I've crafted up some leather boots for easier movement and got lucky with this one, as I laid my eyes on the most perfect structure I could have asked for on day 3. I did not waste much time. I started my visit with digging a cozy pit yard for cows, as they were the first mark on my progress bar. Before I even cleared out my inventory, I wanted to establish a source for leather and food, so it can reach its potential until I need it. After I gathered a bunch of cows, I fed them because, apparently, they poop the babies. I ordered this fella out of his bed, and as soon as the sun came up, I started to move into his home, and finally got rid of this fully packed inventory. When I had a nice and clean inventory, I started to gather a new flock of creatures, more human-like this time. I asked this dripped out one if they wanted to join me, but they sadly declined. So I was forced to make the absolute lick of 2 leashes before I returned to home invasions. I figured it will be the easiest if they gather themselves when the night comes. So I made sure to gather all of their beds, and then I started to repurpose the house in front of my temporary shelter. I robbed the homeowner and furnished the barrack with every bed I could find. I crafted up some fences and built a wall around the beds, basically finishing the villagers' temporary shelter. Or like, I would have finished it if I wouldn't be an absolute moron. Fortunately, everyone was cooperative and no one was harmed in the process, except my self-esteem. Anyway, after I fixed up the shack, I fed my cows. And with this visit, I considered the first stage on my flowchart cleared. Now, I wanted to continue with building the iron farm I was planning all along. You might have noticed that I didn't even mine for any iron, and this is because I usually die when I do so. To avoid this, I went back to destruction and deforestation to get a nice and flat area. When this next moon came up, I decided to bust out a bunch of torches all around the place as I got tired of wasting my time on sleeping. I then crafted up some tools in preparation to terraform the place. In the midst of this process, I got caught in setting a trap for a zombie, thinking ahead. But the contestant forgot to take the last corner and sentenced itself to burn in the morning sun, leaving me with nothing better to do than finishing the terrain. With this being done, I started to dig the hole for the wolf and the sheep. Then I dug the pool for the golems, and when the night came, I trapped the first real employee. I launched my plan to release these separated villagers so they can find... Never mind. Seems like I messed up the order in which I should have hired the employees.
Wait a minute!
But eventually, everyone got scammed into living in a nightmare for eternity. I placed the lava, and on the next day, I collected the iron for the hopper itself. This dude couldn't stand the pressure of taking part in founding the biggest Minecraft village ever, opted out, and finally let me fix the thing with a cobblestone stair. On day 8, I finally crafted a bunch of iron tools for myself and tore down another house that was in the way of the next project. Villagers. I know that I already have a Boy Scout team in my yard, but they are just enjoying themselves and not breeding any children into my currently non-existent kingdom. Currently. Then I continued with recycling the area for the next build. I chose this site right beside the church, which gave me an unholy idea about building further parts of this structure. On the morning of day 9, I was already planting the crops for the future parents who will live here and deliver children into it. Then, with this being done, after I carefully stashed a safety potato, I had to make the hard decision to head into the caves while the crops were growing. I took the risk for staying on time. I scratched some surface coal and headed inside to start a conflict right away, as I just made my way to the bouncer. Once I helped them settle the dispute, I was in a desperate search for gold, as I was thinking ahead again. The breeder wasn't even done yet, but instead of sitting around, I was already executing the next step. On deep slate level, a carefully placed strip mine led me into a geode, which led me into a similar scenario, like what we started the video with. Instead of the creepers, I found some redstone which I kindly accepted, and then I made my way to the first batch of gold on the mining trip. I realized I kinda overloaded my inventory. Then I faced the army of zombies guarding that single piece of diamond. My solution was to start another inside battle, to eventually win the war and collect my reward.
It's like a reward.
I was faced with hard resistance along the way, but with the mobs being in front of me this time, I was able to get my shield between me and them pretty easily, so I was basically indestructible. I lit up all holes and holes, as my primary goal with my here being was to create a safe mining environment and extract all the ores that I need for now. Of course, I was going for diamonds as well, since I had more important roles for my first villagers before I could afford to train an armorer. The only thing standing between me and these diamonds were 2.5 zombies, who quickly learned what it's like to have the high ground.
Of course. Just carry on with your story, dude.
So I found another geode, some more diamonds, and I confidently exposed myself for everything to find me.
Jesus Christ!
I spent my diamonds on durability and started to mine in the already lit rooms. Then, this is what waited on me in the unlit ones. I was waiting with my cheeks taped shut for a skeleton to knock me over. No sign of the CIA so far. I gathered some of my new friends together and we had a blast. I had lots of fun down there, until the next point where my life depended on the capabilities of a skeleton. As much as I enjoyed the sweaty palms and the month's supply of adrenaline, I started to hate this place and felt like I was gambling. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough gold yet to leave. I needed to gather myself. I ran around to light up the last couple corners, and eventually I found the mine shaft, so I captured its coordinates, just in case. I learned to let go with the help of this diamond and was on my way out of here collecting everything that got left behind, finally, in the warmth of my torches. I quickly found my way back to my entrance and made my way through the geode, straight to the surface, where I built the classic cobblestone beacon. After I got home, I put my gold to smelt and expanded the sugar cane farm. I felt like this was time well spent when I crafted up the full diamond gear. I chucked my well-worn set away and covered myself in the sense of security. On the next morning, the unholy idea from earlier crossed my mind, and I was already figuring out the further details. After I took measurements on the inside, I moved on to constructing the outside building, the site of many births beside the temple, ironically. Anyway, my plan was to try to match the build to the theme of a plains village, since that is what I found here originally, and because I didn't have much resources to waste. When the night fell, I interviewed a kind candidate for a brand new position, and the interview went perfect. After some negotiations, we finished with the training and I handed over the work equipment. I made the interior suitable for me to avoid this guy for a while. You can guess how that went. And as you could have already guessed it, this conversion chamber will provide the luckiest villagers with the opportunity of a traumatic renewal. I finished some roofing, as with this I finished the current step on my flowchart, moving on to something that turned out to be extremely important to have, a crop farm. My plan was to carve the thing inside a hill, since I rather gained some materials than wasted them this way. I got to work and counted a 9x9 area and mined it out, just to witness this beautiful sunset. If you appreciate this beautiful sunset too, I appreciate you being here, like for real. And while we appreciate each other so much, I have to notify you that I have to notify you, so you know what to do. While you subscribed, I continued the digging, and as the sun rose behind rain clouds on the next day, I was already going at it from the top part of this little mountainside. And with this being done, I was finally able to install all the farmland. I finished at night, and by the morning I started to build the collection system, as this seemed like the most reasonable thing to start with. I built a hopper tower in front of the farming chambers and placed down the rails for the hopper mine carts. Then, as I didn't sense any movement from the breeder I broke in, just to find these idiots having a pillow party, I seemed to have quite hard time with placing the beds, but believe me, I did this for purely warm-up. I planted some potatoes under the stars, and by the next morning I was done with the top layer of the crop farm. On day 21, even though I had the first villager child in my basement, it was a single one, and the potatoes still had a lot ahead of them. So, while I had to wait again, I decided to move on to the next farm. To start with this one, I conquered the snowy plateau behind the crops, and I mined a straight 2x1 tunnel into the peak. With the coal I gained, I crafted a ton of torches to light up the entire mountaintop. See, the reason to do this was the nature of the next build, the mob grinder. I needed a ton of bones and gunpowder, and the XP is always nice. So, that is why I decided to build a grinder in the air. But for this grinder to grind properly, I had to make sure there are no hostile mobs out of grinding distance. This is why I dug the strip mine so close to the surface, to reveal these kinds of caves where I would run around above a certain Y level to bring some light into the darkness. my way out, I found a zombie spawner that I forgot to record, so this time I made sure to save the whereabouts. I placed down a bunch more torches, and when I finally remembered, the potatoes were ready to multiply, along with the wheat on the top layer. When I replanted both of them, I was back at torching for the day. I lit up a lot of underground area, as I always had some supply of coal up here. When I returned home, I crafted a hotbox machine for my bee friend, just to find out that axes are unable to extract honey. Later on that day, I checked on my supplies and noticed that I almost had a beacon worth of iron. I skipped over happily to check the villager supply and met this handsome young man who got instantly freed via my flawless contraption.
Gotcha.
I had to think hard to breathe life into this flawless contraption. Found a questionable method that seemed to work just fine, so I stuck with it. Somehow, this made me remember that I was about to build a gigantic village and I had no supply of wool to do this, so I was on my way to show a cool magic trick to this new group of friends of mine. I invited them over, cause I left the bunny in the hat in my chest at home, but eventually I had to acknowledge my apartment's inability to house any guest, so I went to set up a barbecue in the rainstorm under the stars. I made sure that my guests watched closely as I set everything up for the party, but don't worry, I won't be barbecuing these sheep. The only thing causing their agony will be this inhumane pen for now. You know what, the pen was totally alright. The sound of these guys mixing with chest squeaking was much more concerning. After I bred them, I crafted my first pair of shears as the tasks for it gathered up. When I eliminated these tasks, I wanted to actually start building the mob grinder. In search for the perfect place for its base, I had a look on my compound and saw that the cows had a lot worse time than the sheep. After thinking about it for a second, I decided where I wanted the ladder to start. Yes, ladder. And yeah, I know about bubble elevators, but my claustrophobia is greater than my fear of heights. After gathering various types of stones for this project, I finally started towering. Fortunately, I was not insanely high, not in Minecraft at least, when I realized that I had no way down. So I performed the MLG water bucket no scope and quickly constructed a pool under the ladder. With this being done, I could continue my way up to the clouds, literally. I took a hit of fresh clouds and tested out the impaired landing solution. It was fun, so I climbed back for round 2, but I had to leave this particularly small platform unintentionally, because Mordecai thought I was Rigby and pulled a prank on me. We both got lucky as I fell through a jump cut and not into my death. That would have meant the end of our experiences here. With this not being done, the wheat was ready for the plantation workers. I even managed to mug a zombie for a carrot, so the middle layer got its purpose at last but not least. With the bottom one finished too, I headed back into the clouds to slightly extend this platform. My first goal here was to make an area for a basic storage system while leaving some space for a possible extension. By the next morning, I was already measuring up the tube that will be casing the drop of the monsters. At this point, I even forgot to have a water bucket with me, so I took a 15-block leap after I made sure I wouldn't get a stroke because of this. I didn't, making me continue with the other columns as well, and when I reached some great heights, I adjusted my video settings to get a better look around. I spotted a meadow, an oak forest, a stony shore, a neighboring snowy peak, and a neighboring acacia village that laid next to another stony beach with an acacia desert right behind it. Additionally, I had that cherry valley in my backyard, leaving me with countless awesome options regarding where I should found my kingdom. But I had more important problems to solve for now. For example, I was out in the sky without enough resources. I brought what stone I had at the moment up here to finish what was left from the central tube, and to get started with the water slits washing the mobs down. By the morning, my calculations turned out to be exactly precise, and this allowed me to finish up the base layer of the spawning area. As the night fell, I was able to spot some unlit spots on the mountain below. When I was all done, I started with the torches up here, then made my way down with them. I found another spot that looked suitable to pierce through the hill from, and I started to carve my way forward in search for possible interference with the spawn rates. This method perfectly substituted a cobblestone farm for now, as I would have done this either way. While I was on the other side, I decided to use what coal I gathered with this tunnel to light up this acacia plateau. I extended the borders of the area even further and made my way through some caves to then return to my own tunnel to think about the next step. By the next day, I had it figured out. It contained me building a cross out of dirt to the entrance of the first tunnel, and after carefully measuring the distance with my naked eyeballs, I needed to dig another tunnel into the mountain, regarding to my plan at least. So, after I built the beacon to this entrance as well, I started digging again. And after some time, I magically found myself on the other side again, that I turned into a biblical side too. I felt like I was getting addicted, so I asked a professional while digging the next tunnel, who advised me to dig a fourth one, just in case. When the last cross stood tall and proud, I could finally allow myself back at the grinder, where I started to build some walls out of the stone I recently excavated. Moving on to the trapdoors, literally trapping the mobs in this case, and to the floors out of dirt, because that's easier to acquire for us at the moment. I built up 3 floors in hope for outstanding production, and for the same reason I busted out my grandma's carpets on the floor to keep spiders from taking up the mob cap. Mordecai kept nagging me, but I had to finish this farm first. I've built the roof and moved on to the walls, and when I was done with them as well, I had nothing else to do than to remove the torches holding back the Grim Reaper for me and escape it. I did a really good job with not messing up anything here for the first try, and while I was waiting around for some numbers, I could finally cross this next part of the good old progress bar out. To celebrate this, I calculated that this farm should produce at least 1 stack of firework rockets in about a minute, if you have the paper, of course. And as you could have guessed from the enchanted book on the flowchart, our next task will be to unlock some fantastic trades on the ground. And if I wanted fantastic trades, I unfortunately had to get started with a miniature bright fantasy version of that famous Polish town in my backyard. Here, I was planning on building a train station where I can cure multiple zombies at one time with using only 1 potion. I planned out the transportation carefully, then I had the idea that I should also transport the sheep next to the cows. So I dug another pit and started to lure the contestants over with mild efficiency. This process was just as circumstantial as good to be done with. I fed them and dipped to finish the roofing of the courtyard. It was hella lame, but functional at least. And with that being done, I moved on to rolling out the first volunteer. I had a feeling that something will go wrong for some reason. Anyway, after the deed was done, I had to showcase this next immaculate function of my flawless contraption. I'm genuinely curious if you can spot what did I forget to do and missed to notice for quite a long time here. Let me know in the comments. When I made sure that the powered rail was not missing from where I thought it was missing from, I replaced it and use my body weight to finally get some results. Still not getting what was I constantly dodging somehow. Not to waste any time, I extracted the next contestant, and to prove my competence, I tried to push 2 dudes at once. Ended up almost ending the episode with this scene. So now, I hope you're starting to understand which Sid I truly am.
This has definitely not been my day. I mean, you know what I'm saying, buddy? Oh, what a mess.
And what a mess it was. My armor at least, so I quickly assembled some new pieces. Even with the armorer on the corner, I chose the expense over restarting a brand new world. When I've put on my new helmet, I made my way to the nearby lava lake to start a new side quest. On the next morning, I counted to 10 in my head to see if I remembered each and every number correctly, which I did, so while I was back there, I also acquired some obsidian for a wizarding table. Since I didn't have the looting enchantment yet, I tried to automate the mob loot collection with what I had, and this finally enabled me to extend the crop farm for the workers. Then I reconstructed a small hut for practicing magic. I even brought a chest for related items. With them, I was about to try my luck. I carefully chose my first enchantment to be a fortune tree on my diamond pickaxe, and quickly moved on to the next one since I had the levels. After some consideration, and a mediocre bow enchantment, I fled the scene without looting or infinity, so I had to fetch some arrows. With the arrows and the crappy bow, I skipped over to the incomplete gate, completed it, and finally lit it up. For now, I had 2 targets over there, Blazes and Enderman. Out of the 2, the second one made more sense to hunt without looting, but I was keeping my eye out for any structure on my way to the nearest blue forest. There was no structure, but a piglin sizing me up, so I shielded up and crafted some gear to fit in with the locals. A ghast also had beef with me later on, but I scared them off with my rather consistent and accurate aiming. When I crept up on my first victim, I was kinda struggling with placing the first boat on the floor. And just as I started to think this was going to be harder than I expected, 3 volunteers signed up and hopped in for a ride. Before I could find the next contestant, it found me and kindly declined my offer with the boat. I cheated death again and filled my belly before mugging him. If there is nothing else that wants to sit in your boat except pigs, you can always bust out this move. Since Endermans are taller than 2 blocks, but you're not, you can easily shelter yourself while still being able to swing at them. They will kindly follow you after the slightest confrontation offering themselves, making this much easier than messing around with boats. Let me know in the comments if you think I should have just mined for gold from the start. Anyway, this area was just perfect for me to gather the Enderman like this, maybe even asserting a bit more dominance than with the trading way. I found a relatively large group literally asking to be slaughtered, but I couldn't get them to teleport, leaving me with no other option than starting to dig a very dangerous staircase. You're about to see why did I approach with this much caution. These things are fast and do a ton of damage on the level of armor that I have, so I am basically nothing without the shelter. Nothing presents this better than the next clip from day 42, where I abandoned the comfort of my cave to adventure out. In an unlucky moment of hunger, I was approached in open field, so it was nothing to consider about fighting back with what I had. It was tricky to track this fool's movement with my life hanging by a thread, but pulling through this paid off, and I found an even bigger group than the last one. The environment enabled me to quickly carve the bunker and start all the beef I needed to finally go home. Fortunately, when I made my way out here, I thought about the return trip. So it was easy to navigate home. When I found my way back to the overworld, I was instantly onto the looting enchantment, which led me to getting Sweeping Edge. Okay, I know it would have been handy in the last process, but I don't need a second one. What I needed to do was to skip and beg the very kindly offered looting 2 in the next round. After this was done, I assembled my pickaxes for better durability and headed back to the hell. Since I didn't see no fortress around, where I adventured out for the first time, my plan was to bridge in the opposite direction, which I did until I reached this foliage hanging from the ceiling, where after a bit of consideration I decided that this would be the perfect place to die from fall damage. I failed to do so, so I built my way back up to have an escape route at least, and headed to find a fortress. I was paying attention to mark my way visibly this time too, when I suddenly spotted La Casa del Diablo. I ran around for a bit until I was finally able to locate an exposed blaze spawner that I started to siege right away. When I made my way closer, I was faced with hot resistance, but I still jumped into it just to get a chance with my looting sword. After I looted the first wave, I constructed a roof above the thing to prevent blazes from flying away, and collected what I needed from here. On my way further inside, I had to reopen an entrance, and with that being done, after just a little bit of exploration, I found the ward that I came for. So I collected what I found along with the soul sand soil. Of course, I had to peek into the chests along my way, and this eventually got me some diamonds, and not just in horse armor form. Then a ninja skeleton ran up on me, so I literally chopped off his head, and this was it for me. I made some space for the body part trophy and ran straight home. There, I carved a basement under my house to plant my wart. This made me remember that I completely forgot something. So, I was back. Since I didn't know about any dark forest in my overworld neighborhood, I thought the most reasonable thing to do in search of brown mushrooms was to return to the Nether. After some time, I found what I came for, and on my way back I was able to spot and capture the whereabouts of the closest fortress too. On day 46, the first weakness potion got chucked into the crowd under the crappy roof, and after I pushed the contestants apart, for them not to eat each other back and forth into zombies, the next morning came and I was a zombie doctor. When this happened, my next task was to tear down this back wall in a suitable house and extend it to a point where I can use the interior as a starter trading hall. When I was done, I tried to offer a job that would have even come with an accommodation to a villager that did not go through the process like his mates did. But as you can see, perhaps because of what I just mentioned, he really thought that the world out there was filled with rainbows and sunshine and other job opportunities, so I had to let him go. I had a few librarians and blacksmiths to train, so I jumped in headfirst and started setting up trades like my life was depending on it. The new workers quickly got tired without doing any actual trading, so I went back to HR for the night to the crop farm. See, this farm had 2 roles, for farmers and traders. After I've brought the first farmer, I was trying to guide the first trader in his place as well, but it wasn't easy at first. When I did get the technique, I was able to rapidly get this bad boy up and running. With this being done, I could cross out another step on my flowchart. As I didn't yet commit any trading for enchanted books, the opportunity was there, so I considered that part done too, meaning that the only thing left separating me from funding and running a giant village was being able to farm the blocks I wanted to build with, stone and wood. So, after I placed down and picked up everything left to complete the crop farm, I took my opportunity to trade for magic books and secured a looting one, and after some trying, I had half of what I came for. This very kind salesman offered the mending book for just 2 emeralds. Of course, I accepted the trade, and with this and the looting, I could finally make a sword that started to fit my dragon slaying needs. As the sun started to rise, I set up a completely unnecessary AFK room at the grinder and gave all the mobs what this sword had. I continued the day with trading papers like Jordan Belfort and hiring new employees later on. This machinery was literally getting worse each time I wanted to use it, but I managed to gather some contestants either way. I came real close to death while I was just trying to help, so a bit later I smashed this idiot's toes in revenge, and after moving everyone in, I spent the night mining another spawn-proofing tunnel that almost ended up in the sheep pen. But the sun was up behind the rain cloud, and this was the perfect day to finally buy some fresh gear. So I went to see what my armorer had to offer, and little guy came in clutch with the feather falling too, so I bought up his stocks with the infinite emeralds that I traded with the neighbor smith for iron. Fortunately, the helmet and the chest plate were enchanted with simple protection too, and I also managed to get an infinity book. With not being able to trade for the day, I tried my luck with magic for a silk touch pickaxe and for some fly shoes before forging the infinity bow and returning to the grinder. I started the next day with copying a bunch of mending books and unlocking another infinity trade. With this, the designated infinity trader was pointless, but I didn't care as I had infinite amount of workers. Regardless the quantity, very little amount of work got done, so I had to call it a day again. I was really counting on that silk touch pickaxe, so I gathered some obsidian in advance for ender chests and spent this night at the grinder as well. When I returned to trading the next day, I noticed an angry little guest and spanked him for spying on us. I tried for silk touch again, but didn't get one. The crop farm was starting to produce some numbers at least. With or without the pickaxe, I crafted a pair of ender chests and grindstones to speed up the process. And on the next morning, I finally had it. To celebrate, I upgraded my bow just to discover the signs of a break-in at my trading hall. When I got there and investigated the casualties, I saw that we only lost the pointless designated infinity trader. But something wasn't right. Someone was chewing on Mr. Looting, so I had to interfere. Well, good news was I didn't need any more looting trades in the near future, and I still had the mending trade. Of course, prices skyrocketed, but in defense against further attacks, I finally got around to place in the windows. I crafted together a fresh pair of feather-falling timberlands to get over with the grief and started to pack my things for the end trip. I made a bunch of rockets and chucked them into the ender chest with a couple potions, a mending book and some iron. On the morning of day 56, I unlocked the last trade I needed to march against the dragon. I quickly brought some dough and bought what I could to combine them into 4 unbreaking 3 books. I spared one for the elytra and reinforced my gear with the remaining 3. At dawn, I made sure to have a proper checkpoint and crafted some more eyes just in case. On day 57, I finally threw the first one, then the next one, the one after that, and another one after that one. You get the idea, I was throwing Eyes of Ender. Eventually I got there with the dark. After recording the coordinates, I collected the winning eye and started to dig myself in the ground. I've hit stone brick and broken to find the portal right away. I tried to warm up my bow and accidentally dropped it into the end, so it was on. After I decided I would rebind this silly setting to another key, I had a relatively good start with destroying 2 lower towers, but a little bit into the battle, I had an assassination going on against me. I wasn't quite ready for this. I even forgot that fighting mechanics were changed like 10 years ago, but spam clicking worked either way, so to prevent any future assassinations, I built myself a little roof that defends perfectly against these attempts. I was back at shooting the towers, which was going really well, until it was not. From the ground at least, so I built myself up as high as I could and sniped a couple more towers from up there too. I finally got the last one as well, so I headed to finish the beast. I went in real close when my arrows started to bounce off to get a chance with my blade, and of course I got launched into the sky. But instead of dying this horrific way, I was able to turn it into my advantage.
I have the high ground!
I ate half of the dragon's heart with my arrows before she perched again. But I didn't approach this time. I exhausted the health bar from above, as without a totem another freefall could have meant a fresh start. I didn't want that. When I thought I was done, I went in with the Dragon Slayer for the finish, just to get launched again. She basically spared me with no water bucket on my hotbar, so I killed her in return. I bathed in glory and collected the egg, grabbed a bunch of building materials with some ender pearls, and bridged out to the gateway. I threw myself into building some bridges that didn't get me too far. Eventually, I spotted an end city, but I ran out of slabs halfway through the next gap, so I decided to continue with throwing a pearl since I was in distance. This wasn't even city, just an end tower. I had to continue. I was fine with teleporting around until I ran out of pearls, but fortunately there was nothing but ender pearls here. I just had to build another roof to collect them. With this being done, I crossed the remaining gaps separating me and the next potential target that I reached and breached easily. I even spotted another ship in the distance. With no time to waste, I built my way up with walls and successfully entered the ship with the help of pearls again. I asserted dominance and finally collected what I came for. I was planning on acquiring as many elytras as I can while being here, so I upgraded the first one and grabbed some rockets. Then I broke out of the first ship and started to look for the direction of the next one. I looted it quickly and already found the third one as well. I didn't spend too much time exploring these places, but I emptied all the chests along the way, even if I knew nothing about the items inside. I collected the last elytra and shulker shell for the day and started to look for a way home. I found one and elegantly flew right into it to return to the main island and watch the credits for who knows how many times.
Minecraft, Java Edition.
I see the player you mean.
Sid Smoke.
It was so good to be finally home, but with this trip, I unfortunately outgrew my little hut. So I got to work right away and installed a platform in my yard and a roof above it. I placed down the chests being the wall of this thing and ended up with this caravan-like terrace. My next task was to find some slime, because for some reason I thought that I would need it later on for the upcoming farms. I didn't. But not knowing about this, I started to fly into a direction to eventually locate a swamp with slimes in it.
Gotcha, bitch!
I met one of these poisonous arrow guys for the first time, but fortunately there was a lot of slime here. The resistance was hard, but the amount of slime was bigger than the risk of staying. On On my way home, I collected a bit of sand as I wanted to acquire some netherite later on. And when I got closer to base, I started sizing up the area for the giant village project. I had a vision about these two peaks and one of the valleys fenced in with 1,000 villagers. So I rushed home to put down the gathered items and craft up a ton of torches to roughly draw the borders of the area in my head. I mean, not to draw in my head, but in Minecraft, with light. My plan was to place the torches along the future wall of the thing and to light up the other mountaintop. I made a bunch of friends on the 2 days it took to figure out the exact route I wanted for the wall, but I didn't mind. I wanted this place to be huge. I ended up choosing this valley, not being sure how it will fit 1k villagers, but it looked kinda big from above, so I filled out the inside area, and by the end of day 67, the place really started to take form. Later on this night, I was about to extend the storage of the grinder, and after some consideration, for whatever reason, I pulled this move.
Oh my God!
I immediately realized that this wasn't what I wanted and that I should have exploded right there. But I'm not that easy to blow up like I was when we started, so I cleared out the tube and tried to place the faulty hopper back into its place, but it wasn't easy. The mobs kept falling one after another.
Yes, we can.
Eventually, I was able to correct the mistake and placed back the carpet too. On the next day, I wanted to make my bees happy, and with flowers, I could get a happy dance out of one. So, to further enhance their joy, I arranged a huge hopbox session as well, before moving on to the next side quest. For this, I crafted a bunch of TNTs and started to max out my bow at the magic hut. I acquired Punch, the almighty flame, and another punch just in case, and forged them together. Now being able to detonate from greater distances, I headed back to the nether. I didn't want to bridge no more as I had solid ground under the portal, even though it was hostile. So I had to build a basic shelter before I could start digging. With this being done, I could finally start dodging lava pockets and lakes. On the next day, I was already placing down and blowing up the Trinitrotoli wall in the trenches, looking for the stupidest valuable in Minecraft. Of course, the method worked well. The main issue I had was the lava. As you can see, it started to get touchy. I think we should start considering to cancel the lava. Anyway, I managed to overcome this difficulty, dug some more tunnels to blow them up. And after clearing out this branch, I made my way backwards, looking for some leftover. I even found a pig that I sniped without a HUD, and after I gathered some more, I was finally able to return to the base and put these 26 pieces to smelt. Then I checked on my crop farm, and with the transition of the days, I mended my tools as well. At night, I met John Cena, who sold some fire trees, which I had to buy, of course. After the deal was done, I borrowed Johnny's leashes too, and the side quest was finally over. To get back on the main track, I spent what time was left from the night to gather the resources of the next farm for the giant village. And on the next morning, I found this neat little spot for the contraption that I started to build immediately. However, something was missing from this incredibly complicated system, so I took it apart and rebuilt the whole thing on the next day. The thing worked properly, but I had issues with reaching into the storage system, so I had another round of reconfiguration. Unfortunately, this one did not turn out that nice, as I forgot to place the lava back. But at least this mistake gave me the idea about the final storage extension I had to try. It worked. I wasted a day, but it worked. I blamed all the hiccups on the phantoms trying to eat me, so I went to sleep at dawn to get rid of them. A couple days earlier, I planted a forest in the closest valley to have some wood in advance, so I turned into lumberjack for the next day. When I was finished, I checked on the cobblestone farm that did awesome. Then I remembered that I was getting so close to being able to start building the mega village, while I had literally no beds for the project. It is one thing that I had the sheep, but no one was picking the wool off them. so I dug some holes like this into the hillside by the animal pits and furnished them to farm the item I always forget about. I lured in a couple of sheep, and the wool production was set on day 85. I was replanting and cutting the forest in the meantime, while I was missing the tree farm and the bone meal for running it as well. I even rerouted the poppy production of the iron farm into a composter to get an extra source, and with this and its entrance done, I went to look for strings. I was eyeballing this hole in this mountain for a long time, so I decided to fly down into it, assuming it had spiders that I could rob for their string. I was maneuvering beautifully inside the narrow chambers, elegantly falling down to diamond level, which I know was diamond level because of the diamonds I found. I also found the spider I was looking for, but then something else found me.
Oh my God!
The group of hostile mobs scared me to launch myself at full speed into a wall, but I barely survived. On top of this, wherever I landed, I was immediately approached and sent away. Because of this, I just kept flying into walls, so I really needed to find what I came for ASAP. Fortunately, it was right in front of me, and it even had a mate, giving me the perfect opportunity to get the hell out of this place. I flew back to base and crafted the loot into scaffolding, what I needed for the next farm. Again, with no slime on the list. At least I had that too. When I carved some space into the mountain of my choice for a better fit, I started with the building right away, hoping to get everything right for the first time with this farm. To put it to the test, I went to collect the bones from the mob grinder, not knowing out of how many times is this the first one. Not to waste any time, I turned on everything, just to find out that I used the wrong compartment with the bone meal dispenser. I continued testing manually, and the farm was up and running. While I placed in the correct dropper, I could cross out the last step of the farm chart, which did a really good job, even if it was incomplete here and there. For example, I was constantly forgetting about wool, and spoiler alert, a bone meal farm would have enabled me to populate the final product even more. But I had to build the thing first, now that I had every source of resource I thought I needed. I surveyed the terrain, considering all possible solutions, already having the items for the wall in my inventory. I had 3 different types of greyish blocks for the base and a ton of cherry fences to go on top. It was a really big area, and figuring out where I wanted the fence to be at certain places made a lot of time pass until I connected the dots. Then I added the other 2 materials, and on night 97 the base layer was finished. It really started to come together, so after a quick air patrol and security mission, I started placing the fences. At first, this seemed to be a really pleasant job. Then a kind zombie challenged me to keep him out of the perimeters with my wall, and I accepted. I was doing great for a couple blocks, but I stayed behind and was forced to kill the competitor. On the night of day 98, I was finished with the wall and had a huge and safe area to work with. I hopped into a creative world to try out my worse and better house designs. As my goal was to fit 1,000 beds, I had to think in building vertically, so I stuck with this one. Look how this guy instantly loved it, not even being in the correct world. Anyway, I started to plan the routes to see if I can fit enough houses. I came to the conclusions that I will figure this out on the ground and that I want to record from the air. So I pulled up the knowledge of everything. With the gathered information, I helped the baby bee into the world and fed a whole stack of flowers to the little newcomer. I crafted some iron shovels and grabbed a bunch more stuff to start the 100 days of building the 1000 villager village. I brought everything to the site, started up the freshly installed replay mod, and got to work. My plan was to build 75% of the target housing opportunity before merging this process with the next stage, populating the place. I grabbed a ton of stone to finish the platforms and crafted up just as many stairs in preparation to start the roofing. See, I was absolutely not going insane for a Minecraft video, so to make progress, but also see progress at the same time, I started to build only the main beams and the roof for each house. I was able to make half of the houses I wanted in one go, and I made a couple adventures during the process. On day 101, I came across my first intruders sent to spy on me building a kingdom here. I killed everyone after I managed to recall something about the raid not starting instantly with the killing of the captain. And with this, I gathered my first bottle of coke. Or when 2 days later, I found out that if I stand in a certain spot at the mob grinder, I can get the skeletons inside to shoot at me and hit other mobs. This was only dangerous because if a creeper doesn't die from one shot, it kinda blows up, leaving a destruction that's a bit harder to reverse than the recent one was. So I tried to be cautious, but I collected so much CDs, I just couldn't stop. I had another side quest for the day, and when I saw that my toolsmith didn't sell no shovels, I had to craft my own as I wanted to dig through dirt smoother. I took the granted unbreaking for the first time. That came with efficiency as well, but I didn't know what did I get myself into with this shovel maxing. So I crafted another one, went to grab some levels, and ended up with Silk Touch that dared to not come with an efficiency, meaning that I had another round, in which I was offered fortune, demanding that I waste some more time on this stupid tool. On day 105, I didn't even mind the efficiency not being the best one. I was happy to finish this flying up and down, as the shovel was cutting through grass like knife in butter. The only thing holding back the construction was the shortage of wood. I had to make these little journeys between the farms during building, but at least I could take some breaks from building roofs. I got so tired of placing the stairs for roofing that after like 50 houses, I even started leaving the middle part for later, being the sloth king of procrastination I am. Not to mention that this was going well in daylight, but at nighttime it was simply a nightmare. It was stressing me out so much that I forgot to sleep every time at dawn, not wanting to waste any more time than a quick power nap. Then I was finally done with exactly 77 houses and it looked awesome. Okay, I wasn't all done. With this round I only built the shell, meaning the walls and floors, but it felt like so much progress. And it actually was a lot. Not like my poppy conversion bone meal production, but at least the iron was almost overflowing, so I had to craft it into blocks. Running through these empty shells of houses, and a bunch of them, was kinda weird. Even with basically everything missing, I saw so much into the place. If you do too and would like to support me, you know what to do. Now that you've liked and subscribed, we can enjoy this beautiful Minecraft sunset over this monstrosity of a village. A wonderful one, isn't it? Both the sunset and the village. Wow. Unfortunately, we don't really have more time to waste with this, so let's just prepare all the items for the next round of building. In this one, I'll place in the ladders, the railings on the terraces and the windows, leaving only the beds at last. With this being done, I connected each and every house to the road network for the villagers with weaker pathfinding abilities and started with some farms around the place. As I was getting closer and closer to releasing the first inhabitants into this town-sized village, I also wanted them to be self-sufficient from the start. So I built as many of these fields I could fit between the houses, and when I've hoed all the dirt into farmland and planted the crops on them to start growing, I really had to take another break. Psych, taking a break meant to run around the place and take the last security measurements, to discover even the smallest risk for villagers and eliminate it right away. This even included my spawn-proofing tunnels along the natural dangers and missing fences. Then I went to gather the wool, which was luckily the perfect amount to start with, as I had a full shulker box. This equaled to exactly 576 beds or 9 stacks, but that's a non-existent thing, unfortunately. So, for the final step on the first batch of houses, I had to bust out this incredibly painful move and repeat it 75 more times. You see, every house was able to fit 10 beds, and I had 77 houses, giving me the approximate 3/4 of the final number. I placed down around 200 beds to start with, as I was assuming that there was no chance for the current breeder to produce more villagers than this until this point. After the final touch, I went to check if I was right with my guess or not. I had the distant memory about the letter E in the top left corner standing for entity. So, after looking at the problem from different angles, I figured there should be about 50 villagers inside. Then I peeked inside from a third angle, and after letting a child free, I noticed that inside these things there are a couple of dudes being repeatedly launched into the back wall because of entity cramming. Did you know about this? Now you do, and I even finished the tunnel into the perimeters. I connected the output to the infrastructure, placed the water, and finally broke the dam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yo, let me out of here, stupid sloth. I answer by square bucks.
Yes, sir. 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 Yes, sir.
Yo, let me out of here, stupid sloth.
I don't even know what his real father would ask my child on my ass.
When the hell will you be out of here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One of the first ones in here. And trust me when I say I've seen everything there is to see.
Now that was intense. I think my estimate was right about 50 of them being in there, so if I'd rely on these ones to get the whole kingdom up and running, they'd have to work like bunnies in springtime. But just look at them, dog. They themselves aren't even up and running. Or like, they're scared to death, or just traumatized for life and absolutely not meant to live anywhere outside a one-by-one job site. Either way, it was obvious what I had to do to snap them out of the breeder sewer genjutsu. I brought the magic bed, and just as I placed it on the ground, the march into paradise began. Then I picked it up and the march stopped, so I replaced it again. We were doing this until the last villager found its place into one of the first functional houses. Actually, to be exact, the very last one didn't even make it. As there was a couple skeptical guys until the very last minute, there was also this dude who looked like he had literally zero trust towards me or to this place, so I felt like I have to earn his belief. I don't think I convinced him with this one, but at least I tried to be a good leader here. And I also tried to do so when I made sure that every single one of my people was safe and sound at dawn, because that's what great leaders do. They check on you in your sleep. When I was performing this duty, suddenly the first day of my kingdom started. The villagers were waking up in search for something to do one by one. Everyone was either going to work or talking to a mate or an iron golem. It was beautiful. My plan was working out really good so far. It's needless to say that this bitter moron didn't even give a chance to fitting in, but at least he showed me the most obvious way out of the walls, so I've let him roam free in return. I quickly fixed the issue and spotted the next one right away. My original breeder channeled into the village interfered with the iron farm spawning, but I had to return to observing villager behavior for the day, so I postponed this task for now. I noticed that my villagers were gathering and trying to make love around the only well I provided, so while I looked over them going to sleep in the sunset, I made a quick search to figure out the reason for this. I found out that it wasn't the well, but the bell, and everything clicked. These guys are coming together around any bell they find with their mates to share food and reproduce this way. And as I didn't know about this, the placement was a bit off, but the first day wasn't fruitless at all. I've patched up an important part of the fence and also learned about the bell thing. I thought about everything before letting anyone in here, but as you can see, I still forgot about the classic marketplaces, so I scattered them around the village afterwards. When I placed the first bell, I was instantly approached in gratitude for the nice touch. I already saw some children running around, and being a potato millionaire, I was about to shoot some love into the air with my potatoes on the next day to speed up the population growth. It was really nice to see the amount of villagers that usually makes up a whole village gathered around just one meeting point out of many in the town they live in. Of course, this many of them was nearly not enough, so I went to look for another way to get some babies going on. After I observed the technique my current breeder used to trap newborns, I was already carving the brand new ones into the side of one of the heels. Yes, plural, I was totally not okay with 1 or even 2 new breeders. I needed at least 4, as we are aiming for 1,000 villagers here. I built only the first pair in one session, because the children were growing up and they had an empty inventory, which was wasting potential. So I tried to fill up those inventories until I was left alone in the rain, which made me return to excavating more breeders into the other mountain. Maybe I should have stopped at 4, but I made another 5, giving me a total of 7 breeders, feeding the place with fresh villagers. The only problem was the quantity over quality, making a perfect example out of my plan, as I just discovered that a villager enters beds from the pillow side. But when I corrected this, housing started to bottleneck the baby production, so I had to reach into that wool shulker again. When I was done with placing all 500 beds, filling this valley with the opportunity for almost 800 villagers to live here, to encourage them to do so, I also started constructing the markets. With this, I made the other half of already existing houses available, so to reach the 1,000, I needed to unlock more areas. One of the hills inside the perimeters was easier to access, for the other one I decided to build an ugly and unsafe cobblestone stair. Forgive me for this one. I literally had no more brain capacity to come up with anything nicer than this. At least the mountain constructions began, and maybe you can write me some design ideas in the comments. As for now, everything is too simple and plain in the village. On day 176, another patrol sent to spy the updates on my kingdom appeared so unexpectedly that I even forgot to record the sound. Other than this, the fortunate situation was that at this point, iron golems were all around the place. One of them saw what was happening and rushed to my aid. It was wholesome. What wasn't were the other malfunctions happening at the mass breeder. Turns out that a bed that has another bed above it does not count as a proper one when villagers are trying to breed. This meant that I had to stretch the whole contraption just a little in both directions to reach the 100% production, as this way the chambers under other ones didn't trigger any childbirth, making only 4 out of 7 farms produce in total. I had a couple tasks left to make the growing population actually want to explore and move into the recently added hillside areas. I knew that I had to buy more bells, but they were just so expensive. I figured now's the time to give the markets a real purpose of trading. After running around and marking up some districts with jobs I can profit off, I went to check one of these fairs out for myself. I found most clerics at this central square, as probably this one can be accessed from their houses with the least effort. And this was my goal basically. When I want to sell something, I just have to visit one of the markets where the regarding villagers tend to hang at. That easy. And now that I could purchase the bells, I placed the last 10th one in the valley and finally started with finishing up the leftover houses, even matching the wood type to the biome I was building in. On day 195, in the finish line, I was still forgetting to record the sound of the game, but at least the wool production was just perfect for my needs. Things started scaling so much that even one of the replay files got corrupted, but here I was, done with all walls, and the only thing left was beds again. I was so close, with just above 100 houses done. I've added 5 other meeting points to get a total of 15 and started looking into the last problem of the video. See, I accidentally made the last couple houses 2 blocks longer on one side, meaning that each one could fit 3 additional beds, raising the maximum housing capacity of my kingdom to around 1,100. I've spent the last day with feeding my people, so they eventually take up every bed I am offering them, and when they went to sleep, I scattered the last type of job site block I planned for now. I watched the beautiful Minecraft sun rise on day 200. As the shadows faded, so did this chapter. The world lit up one more time, and I knew the journey mattered more than the destination. So, thank you for walking it with me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If yes, it means the world to me when you press buttons under the video. I hope to see you in the next one. Be safe till then. Peace.